Hey everyone, I'm here, and yes, it is that weekend again. It is time to reveal the Scrapping for Less Flavor of the Month card kit. Now remember, this one is for September, and it's called Happy Fall, Y'all. So as always, you have your downloads of the ingredients and also the sketches. As always, you also do get your cardstock, so you get two 110-pound Nina Crest Solar White, Tangy Orange, Jelly Bean Green, Black Licorice, Lemon Drop, Hot Fudge, and Whipped Cream. So let's look at collection number 1. So the paper, Let's Talk Bees, and it is by Scrapping for Less. Yes, that's awesome, right? Love these papers. They are a nice thickness. This is your stamp. That's the Bumblebee Marcy, created exclusively for Scrapping for Less. Some nice glass beads and some also sequins by Buttons Galore. And you get some die cut pieces, again, by Scrapping for Less. So take a note here of what's going on. For collection 2, the paper is Fall Breeze by Photo Play. And they are double-sided, just like the previous papers. They were double-sided as well. The stamp is the Scarecrow Marcy by La La Land, and it was created exclusively for Scrapping for Less. You get some stickers or die cuts. You get your sequins by Buttons Galore and a piece of twine. Now, remember, with any of the collections, 1 through 4, you always get an envelope, too. I sometimes forget to say that. So for collection 3, the papers are Stay a While by Bo Bunny. So we do have a earthy coffee theme with those. The stamp is called Teresa Talks Fall by Scrapping for Less. So it's not one of the smaller sizes. This is close to a 4x6 stamp set. You get some flowers. You get some tags. And of course, sequins by Buttons Galore. For your 4th collection, the paper is Amber Moon by Prima. This is gorgeous paper, just like all the others were as well. All these papers were absolutely gorgeous. The stamp that you'll see, and again, these are double-sided. What's nice is you also have your sentiments that go with that as well. I was jumping ahead. So the stamp set is called Give a Hoot, and it's also by Scrapping for Less as well. And again, 4x6, so you got some great owls going on there. You have some great sequin sets by Buttons Galore. You get some Google Eyes, and you get some bronze feather charms. The Google Eyes are the small ones, so they're not the regular large ones that you see. So the small ones, they're so cute. And you get 3 sets of those. So now everything that you see here on the screen right now is what you get if you subscribe to the Double Dip Sunday. Okay? So Double Dip Sunday people, here it is. Now for those of you that want to purchase or you've already subscribed to the Banana Split, these are the items that you're going to get. And please note, the items may change. I'll speak on that in a little bit. You're going to get a Tim Holtz Distress crayon. Now, it could either be wild honey or mustard seed. So either color could be in your kit. You're going to get a die, and it could either be a leaf or a word die by Altenew. Or, excuse me, by Spellbinders. You get the Grateful Stamp Set by Altenew as well. So we're going to get started on collection 1. And I used sketch 3. Now, again, I can't stress, when it comes to the items in the kit, note that all of these items are subject to change without notice. But just know for the Banana Split, it's an either or. So you're either going to get wild honey or distress or mustard seed in the Distress crayon, or you could get the leaf or the word die by Spellbinders. So you don't know. You can't choose those. All right, so let's get back to the card. So you can see I've cut my 1 strip. The black strip is cut at 3/4 of an inch wide by 5 1/2. I am working on a 5 1/2 by 4 1/4 card design base. This is not my card base. This is what I'm designing on. I usually do that 9 out of 10. I do like to have a base that I'm building whatever it is I'm creating onto, and then I adhere that onto my standard A2 size card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and it is usually a top folding as well. So the panel with the beehives is cut to be 4 1/4 by 2 1/2. The gray panel was cut to be 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. I did, to save time, I colored my image off camera, and I did use my alcohol markers, and I used a mixture of Copics and Stampin' Up! Blends. So I'm going to adhere my little Marcy down, and I did choose the colors from the packaging, and that's one thing I do like about their packaging. They can help you with colors to choose from, and you can use that so that you can color your design. And that's what I did. The slight difference that I made, I didn't use black when it came to her headband and the stripes. I just went with dark grays. I adhered her down, and then I chose one of the die cuts that came with it as my sentiment, and it says "Be Happy." I'm going to adhere that onto my standard card base and trim off the edge because I never get them on straight, but that's okay. I pulled out my Nuvo Midas Touch glitter pen. Now, this pen has gold flecks in it. So it's like the clear glitter pens that we all use, you know, Wink of Stella and so forth. But this is actually going to give it a gold sheen when you turn it. So this is something that Nuvo came out with recently, and I just had to try it. So it's really cool, though. I very much enjoy that glitter pen. So I'm just putting that on her wings, and I'm accenting her headband with that. I realized that I did not color her lips, so I just real quick added some color to that, and that is our first card. For our second card, we are going to use Collection 2 and Sketch 2. Now, what I liked with the papers that came with this collection, you have a panel with sentiments on it. So, you know, let's say you're you do love making cards, but you don't have a lot of stamps with sentiments. You do have them in this kit, but you also do have the option to just use the papers and some of the sentiment panels that come with it. And that's what I chose to do with this one. So I cut my one panel, and I wanted to make sure I used the leaves because I just love the prints of it, and I like the size. There was a beautiful piece of wood cardstock, and I'm going to adhere that on the left-hand side. That wood panel is cut 2 by 2 inches, and then the leaf panel below is cut 3 3/4 by 4 1/2. So now I have my next panel, and I layered it. I had cut a thin strip of just some solid brown cardstock, and then I'm using that to accent the polka dots. Now the polka dots, I just cut 6 inches by 2 inches, and I'll be trimming off the edge of this once I get it onto my card panel. But I will be covering up the bottom of that section there. So I wasn't worried about if the pieces were even, if they were the same size, because I knew I was going to cover those up. So I'm just going to set this in place. And then I used one of the sentiment panels, "You are never too old to play in the leaves." Now, come on. A lot of you are out there saying that when I do the raking of the leaves, I must jump in the leaves. I have to do it once. It's fun. I still do it. Drives my husband crazy. But anyway, so I'm going to use my double-sided foam tape on one side and then my liquid adhesive on the other, because the panel below is propped up with some double-sided foam tape. Of course, after I apply that and then apply my wet glue, I remember I want to use my vintage photo to go around the edge of that panel just to let that pop a little bit, because I didn't back it with a solid cardstock or anything else to help make that pop off. But just by adding, it doesn't have to be vintage photo. It can be any ink that you want to put around that edge. That will also frame it as well. Same thing, I did the design on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 design base, which is then adhered to my standard A2 side card base, and then I trim off the edges. I grabbed my Nuvo drops, this is dark walnut, and I'm just going to add 3 dots along the top left-hand corner and at the word leaves, and then I also grabbed my English mustard and added some dots as well, just to brighten that area up a little bit. For card number 3, I'm going to use collection 3, and I'm doing sketch 4. One of the pieces of pattern paper there, as you can see, was a brick wall. I thought it looked cool, so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make a graffiti for fall. It's just something that came into my mind. So I have my 2 panels cut, and then I grabbed the sentiment from the stamp set, and it says happy fall y'all. So I grabbed my Gina K dark chocolate, and I'm just going to stamp this. For some reason I could not get that one section to stamp. It was absolutely hysterical. I'm not sure what I was doing, but we finally got that. I'm going to use my foam squares to put on the back of those 2 panels and set them on the one side. I also stamped the image with the coffee cup and the pumpkin, and I actually used my Versamark ink on that because I wanted to heat emboss the image down, because I wanted to use copper. So once that image was stamped, I did pull out, I wasn't quite sure if I was going to go with copper or if I was going to go like with a champagne, aka, liquid platinum, which is one of my favorites. But I did like the rustic look of the copper, and that's what I chose. I did watercolor this piece because this is a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper, and the watercolors I did use are the Hero Arts liquid watercolors. I'm really liking them because they do dry out, but they can be reconstituted with water, which is awesome. So I just grabbed that. It was sitting on my table from another card that I completed earlier. So I'm setting up my panel, and again, the design base was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm setting that down onto my standard A2 size card base, again, trimming the edge. I very rarely trim the bottom edge, but it was crooked. So that's why I trimmed that one. I usually just trim the side. I'm okay if it's sticking out on the bottom. It helps the person to open it, if they have like a little lip. So I'm taking that panel that I watercolored, and again, I did do that off camera just to save some time, and I'm going to set that in place. So it's just coming just a little bit above the sentiment, because I also want to put something just above the sentiment. But I'm really liking the graffiti feel. I don't know. I thought it was cute. I grabbed the twine, I doubled it up, and I tied a bow. Actually did pretty good with this one. I usually don't like to make you all suffer with the bows. So I just cut off the end just to get through that. I'm going to use one of my micro glue dots just to adhere that up above the sentiment. And that is our 3rd card. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot. Dark walnut, Nuvo drops. I just went into the image. I keep forgetting I keep adding those Nuvo drops. Okay, so now we're on card number 4. And I did use collection 4. And we're going to follow sketch number 1. So these are those pretty Prima papers. I grabbed some solid cardstock from my stash, and you can just see the layers after layers after layers that this card's going to take on. Now, you can hear me rustling through some paper. Now, what's great with this is that sketch will actually give you dimensions You can follow them. You know, the black and orange polka dot there, that's actually cut to 4 by 5 1/4. And then the orange, the orange that's on top of that, because that's actually going to be a mat, that's actually cut to be 3 by, I'm checking this, yes, by 4 1/2. So you can play with those sizes. Remember, a sketch is to give you inspiration. You can do exactly what it shows, but again, it's for inspiration. It can get your thought process going, and you can see I always make some type of change. And again, it's just the way that I'll put this together. But when you have this number of layers throughout your card, you want to make sure that you do something before you do something else. So for this, even though I have the mat down on the main panel, I wanted to make sure, okay, I want to get my sentiment on top of that strip, and then I'm going to put that down on the panel that's going to go to. Then I wanted to design the other one, the smaller one, which is 2 by 2, or 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. And I'm going to add a couple more strips onto that, because that piece as well is going to go onto another mat. So since that square here that I'm working on is 2 1/4 by 2 1/4, the mat for it is actually 2 1/2 by 2 1/2. What that's going to do is it's going to give me an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around it. If you wanted that border smaller, then if your mat is 2 1/2 by 2 1/2, then you would cut the design square to be 2 3/8 by 2 3/8. You would drop 1/8, and then you have that scant border on the outside. I did at least want the 1/8 of an inch. That's funny. Inch going around. So now I'm going to hear this panel that's now completely together on top of that mat. And then again, it's just cut a 1/2 an inch, or 1/4 of an inch smaller when they layer. And you can see that it gives you texture. I didn't use any foam squares. I just kept on layering and layering and layering. That too will give you texture on your card. I was tossing around either using brown or black. I did choose the brown. I think it lets the black stand out just a little bit more. So those are the 4 collections. So if you get the banana split, in mine, I got the leaf. Now remember, you could get the word die from Spellbinders and not the leaf. I pulled out my craft mat. I'm going to use my Distress crayon. I have Wild Honey, and I scribbled that down as well. I'm using Ripe Persimmon. I am using... I totally went blank. Aged Mahogany, Fossilized Amber. I'm using Moss Green and the purple. Concord. That is the purple, I believe. So I'm just creating a background, and I'm just adding these colors. I'm going to do 2 layers. I want to dry in between, because then it will mold those colors together. And I'm just going to keep on dropping it in. That's all I'm doing. I'm letting the watercolors do the work. I really did speed this up, because this I did want to keep in so that you could see how these colors came about for those leaves. Again, I pulled out my heat tool because I need to make sure that this is dry. I'm not worried about going to the edge of the piece of watercolor paper. Now remember, this watercolor paper here is the Tim Holtz watercolor paper. Now I'm going to do my splatters, so I'm going to grab some Aged Mahogany. I'm going to get crazy. I love that line that went across it. I'm also adding water to my Wild Honey Distress Crayon. I'm adding them there as well. I'm using a towel to lift up even more for those that are still damp. Again, it's just very scattered and all over. And that's one thing I like. So you can see my leaves off to the left-hand side. I think they look really sharp with all the splatters. I'm going to stamp my sentiment. Now, I'm keeping also all this in because this went downhill very quickly. I mean very quickly. So I stamped my sentiment and I did it in the upper right-hand corner. I'm looking, and it's at this point where I keep looking at it. You're going to see these fingers tap a lot. Something just, for some reason, looked off. But I always say we keep going. We don't give up on the card. We don't stop. These are our creations. So I'm stamping the acorns from Altenew, and I chose two colors from my Gina K inks, the dark chocolate, and the other color was wild honey. And I'm still looking at this, and I'm like, you know what? Something's off. So I figured, all right, I'm going to grab my vintage photo. I'm going around it saying, okay, maybe this can, can center this. So now I decide to go around the leaves. I'm doing that, and I'm liking what went around the leaves, but for some reason this panel was really just throwing me off. So I started playing with the placement of the leaves. I really like the colors, but again, it just, for some reason, it just wasn't working. So I did grab another panel, did the same thing, used a stitch square die from my stash, went around with vintage photo, but my stamps weren't going to go to waste. So what I did was I fussy cut them out, and I added vintage photo to them, and then heavier on one side, so it almost gave like a shaded edge to it. I re-stamped the sentiment. This time I put it in the center. But what I also did was I grabbed my Faber-Castell Pit pen, and I drew some lines on the acorns. Now, I probably should have done that on the panel before I cut them out, because I think this is what these acorns were missing for me. For some reason, these details, those lines. I love the stamps, but for some reason it was just missing something. And that's what it was. Once I drew those lines, I'm like, should have kept them on the panel. Shouldn't have been quick to cut them out. But that's okay. Again, paper. It does have two sides. I could have just stamped on the other side. So many things you can do. Again, I'm playing with my placement of my leaves. I'm also now able to play around where I'm going to put my acorns. So I just wanted to make this look as if they were just thrown there, and they settled down to the corner of this panel. I grabbed one of the green tones for my card base. I propped this panel up using some double-sided tape. And then I grabbed, now this trick here, so you can see how I'm rubbing that bottle of Nouveau drops in between my palms. What's happening is the heat from my palms is helping to shake up the Nouveau drops. Now this is English mustard, grape, and dark walnut. So I'm using those and placing them all around. By doing that action, some of us, me especially, I have about 10 to 12 of them that have gotten very thick. Almost difficult to come out of the container. And that's our last card. Now here are the close-ups of the cards that we made today. Now back to the Nouveau drops. So if you do that with your palms, the heat from your palms will go in there and it's going to shake up at the same time. They will go back to the way they were when you had them, when you first bought them. I giggled when I was told to do that. And I got that from Tonic. So they did get back to me when I asked them the question. And I did. I giggled when they told me what to do, to shake it, rub it in your palms. But it does work. So I hope that helps everybody else. Again, these are the close-ups that we made today. I do hope that you enjoyed these cards today. I hope you give them a try. But especially, I hope that you will give this card kit a try. The link below or the link to the card kit will be down below. You don't want to miss this one. It is going to sell out fast, I'm sure. There are some great stamp sets in here, great papers, and great embellishments, as always. I will also have linked down below to their blog so that you can stay up to date and see more designs by their great design team. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I hope everyone's having a great day. I hope we are getting ready for fall. I think it's making its way in, and maybe with this kit, we can give it even more beauty than what it already has. But always remember what's most important. Always be creative.